lot of them.
Recording in progress.
Green for gigabit, yellow for 100 megabit, and off for 10.
Oh, okay. And I noticed one of mine is 10 half duplex.
Really?
Magic Jack. Magic Jack.
Oh, okay.
That
Kind of
is not
surprises
right.
me that it's half duplex, but
But if you plug that patch cable into anything, it's not pleasant.
I gotta tell it to fix that camera. Oh, Art is here. Maybe. And it seems like everything froze. Okay, that's the camera. Howdy. There's Art.
Liz,
Oh.
anybody?
Hi there.
Howdy.
oh,
Steve's here and he can answer your Debian question that he already knows because I already said something about it.
What deviant question was that?
About moving all your software after the upgrade.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The rebuilding all of the applications that carefully cultivated over the years. I always do it the hard way. I just reinstall them as I think of them.
you can script that.
Well, I know on the Red Hat descendants that you've got Kickstarter to work with, but I haven't been able to find an equivalent on the Debian descendants. So,
Well, Kickstarter only tells you what you, I mean, yes, you can do a Kickstarter initially, and that gives you a known build. But if you add something later, Kickstarter doesn't help you.
oh, okay.
But on Red Hat and Debian, there's a way to get a list of packages. If you go to plug.org,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, Steve.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing too.
sorry, go to plug.org, and in the search box, look for DPKG, D package.
Yeah,
Hit enter, it'll come up.
okay, will do. So you have it on your website in effect.
Yes.
Okay. So you look at DPKG.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll do that as soon as we're done with this meeting. I am right now operating using Mint XFCE, and I am on 20.3, which I guess is the latest LTS version.
Yeah, it is.
I'm gradually learning the ins and outs. There are things that are good on it, and there are things that I prefer on Ubuntu, but like everything, it's a question of what you're used to. It's not better or worse or whatever. Okay. All right.
I put a link in the chat for you,
Okay.
but there it is.
Yep. Cool.
That was
Okay.
instead of app-get.
App and app dash
Didn't
git
you-
are the same thing, aren't they?
Apps didn't exist when I wrote that. Holy crap, I've been running some form of Debian since 2008.
apt and apt-get are synonymous with each other.
I thought apt was around before 2008.
Apt-get was, but not apt.
Ah, yeah, they switched over at some point in time.
I didn't realize there was any real differences between the two.
They're the same binary now,
Yeah,
but when apt-get came out, it had a little bit better parsing for figuring out dependencies. And so
Well, that
there's
makes-
now
that
a
makes-
switch to turn that off to give you the original apt-get functionality.
that explains some of the weird message that I get about dependencies. Then. Okay,
So you definitely want to use apt, not apt-get.
Now you can
currently.
use either. They're the same thing now. It's
Oh, okay,
one binary with links to it.
okay.
I honestly, when they switched to app, I just figured they were making a shortcut to apt-get.
They ran both for about 3 or 4 years. And then
Okay,
apt-get just died.
I just figured that some programmer somewhere was trying to save 4 keystrokes. That's what I figured. Because it's 4 keystrokes.
well, Ubuntu 22.04 comes out tomorrow. My guess is that you won't be able to download it for a week or so because it'll be too jammed up. But
BitTorrent is your friend.
say again?
BitTorrent will have it available.
Oh, yeah, true.
You can't hear that.
It should be here within a few hours because I assume that they go by the 21st of the month UTC.
I'm not sure when they release it. I've seen it come out at interesting times.
Well, the original, I assume, is released from Isle of Man, and then it goes and it populates the mirrors, and then you go from there.
I don't know. I don't pay any attention to what Ubuntu's doing anymore.
I don't tend to upgrade for at least a few days.
I generally wait for a month or two. I figure if something can go wrong, it'll be in that first couple of months.
I must be the only one. I almost as soon as they say there's an upgrade, I'll go, okay.
Well, you
Do
talk,
Do it.
you're talking about upgrades of apps, or you're talking about the whole OS upgrade?
Almost, unless I have heard that there is some big problem somewhere, almost immediately, as soon as it says there's a distro upgrade, I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I do the dist upgrade and then I'll let it sit for a while and wait like a week or 2 weeks and then do an update just to see how many packages they.
Yeah,
I think this new version 21.0 or whatever that they're going to do, I'm probably going to do a clean install with it.
Mhm.
I have not done a clean install in 4 or 5 years. So.
Yeah.
you're talking about Linux Mint, right?
Yeah. I think this is the one that probably deserves a clean install. There's a number of different changes they've made. So
Yeah, well, disks are cheap enough that you can basically just spin up a new partition and do an install.
Yeah.
Which is what I typically do, and then I move everything over and
Oh.
so forth.
I had some weird problems going from 20.2 to 20.3 that still haven't been resolved, so, you know, and it's only, you know, it's
The little
me.
icon. Yep.
Yeah, it's me. I'm the one. If there's gonna be a problem, I'm going to find it.
Okay. Well, every troop requires a few scouts. Okay.
That's why I'm almost, probably definitely on this machine because of what I use it for, 21. And the one at home, almost certainly going to get it. I've got so much stuff on that thing that I don't even use anymore that it's just like, okay.
Yeah, I'm in a meeting right now. Can I call you back?
There's a fundamental question for you. Do live meetings take precedent over Zoom meetings or vice versa?
No, this takes precedence. This guy just wants to sell me junk.
Oh, I think in my case, it probably depends on whether or not it's my wife calling or not.
Yeah. This was a guy from ADT, and I'm almost certainly going to get ADT, but he was such a salesman.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got ADT and I'm pretty happy with it, I must say. Except they give you one of those little dongles that you can push to set and so forth and so on. But they don't give you a cover that put over it. So I'm out in my driveway one day doing something, I don't know, working on the car or whatever. And a pair of cops from Union Township pull in the driveway. And I thought, what's going on?
What did I do?
And it turns out what I had done is I'd stuck this dongle in my pocket and somehow or another tripped the there's a hot button, emergency button on them, somehow tripped that. And they came over and said, we got an alarm from here. Do you belong at this house in effect? And of course, it's complicated in my case because I'm only here roughly half the year. So at any rate, so they said, yeah, we got. So I identified myself and proved to at least to their satisfaction I was really supposed to be there. And they said, well, your alarm's going off. And so sure enough, about that point, Barbara came out of the house and said, the alarm's going off. What's going on? And I said, well, I guess I tripped a button. So, you know, I don't carry it around in my pocket anymore. I very carefully keep it someplace where I won't accidentally trip it.
You need to 3D print yourself a cover.
Well, if I had a 3D printer, I'd probably do that. But the upside of it is I don't.
You know,
So
that do.
We may be able to help you with that.
okay. Well, I think, you know, it's such an obvious thing, you know, is that you don't want to trip this thing by accident. I looked at Amazon to see if they had some kind of a case you could put it in where you didn't, but I didn't find one. So at any rate, one of these days, probably the next time the cops show up, I will get more serious about it. So far, knock wood, it's only happened once. And it was a nice sunny day and everybody was cool and so forth and so on. So
They didn't get out there with their guns going, freeze, maggot.
yeah, right. Well, the further interesting thing about that story is they apparently had a ride along, which I thought was a little unusual. So there was a woman in the car who was not part of the force, who was apparently a citizen ride along. I didn't realize they even did that,
Yep.
but
I think they do that down in Cincinnati. Don't they? Citizens, don't they have citizens on patrol down there?
Well, that's a different thing.
That they'll ride with the cops, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I never saw it, but I've seen it a lot out in Union Township.
That's the thing. They do that.
well, the strange thing about our house here is that we are about 300 yards south of the Union Township line. And on the other side of it is Milford. So straight north of us, 300 yards, and down about 300 or 400 feet is I guess it's, I don't know, can you be in a city and a township, or I don't know how it works in Ohio, but at any rate, it's Milford, just on the other side of the railroad tracks from us. So
my dad used to live in a condo that was right on the edge of Butler County, Warren County. It was just outside of Middletown. And if he called the cops, he never knew who was going to show up. He didn't know if Middletown was going to show up. He didn't know if Butler County would show up. He didn't know if Warren County would show up. Somebody always showed up. It was just never the same people. But it was very much the same situation. I've got a friend that lives out on Preble County Line Road that same way. If he calls, either Preble County or Butler County will show up.
well, fortunately, we haven't had to call them except by me accidentally tripping the button. But apparently New Union Township is who shows up here. Now, I don't have a large sampling of these events, so I don't know, maybe the next time it'd be a different group, but it's definitely
Easily 35 years ago, my son had a crappy old car and it wouldn't start one night. And we were trying to start it. We pushed it into the garage, opened up the hood and trying to see whether we were getting fire. And we could crank it over, but it would backfire. Well, that happened about 2 or 3 times around midnight. And the Middletown police came driving down our street, and just as he got in front of the garage, there was a mammoth sounding backfire from the car, and scared the hell out of him. He thought he was under attack. Both of us go walking out of the garage with our hands in the air. And it was water that had gotten into the distributor and was causing a malfunction. And the 2 cops that came after their heart rate settled back to semi-normal, they came in the garage just to make certain we weren't bullshitting them, that we did not have a set of shotguns that we were firing at people.
well, okay.
But
Yeah,
I was happy that they didn't go on the aggressive hunt and shoot all moving targets.
yeah.
Freeze,
Well, this is the good old days with distributor caps. I don't think those even exist anymore, do they?
Only on really old cars.
Yep.
I haven't looked under the hood to even see. No reason to.
Well, I look under the hood every time we get out here because generally the battery is down. And I started putting trickle chargers on them so that the cars are fully charged up. But if I just leave them, particularly in the wintertime, it doesn't get that cold in the garage. About the coldest I've recorded temperatures in the garage in the mid 30s, but so they're not below freezing. But the batteries get low enough that they won't crank. And so, you know, I have to have the hood up with a trickle charger attached to them the whole time we're gone.
Harbor Freight, about $8.
Yeah, well, I think these didn't come from Harbor Freight. I think they came from either Lowe's or Home Depot, but you know, they were under 20 bucks. And you know, all the other thing that I found is that on the olds that I've subsequently gotten rid of, apparently the battery drainage was below the trickle charger input.
Yeah.
So the trickle charger couldn't keep up with whatever the battery drainage was. So that thing, this is a 95 olds. And I guess it had a bunch of stuff that ran even when the ignition was off. It definitely had a clock and a bunch of other stuff. So even though I had the trickle charger on, it wasn't enough. And I think the trickle charger was only an amp. I think the max out of the trickle charger was an amp. And apparently that wasn't enough to keep it, particularly in cold weather, that wasn't enough to keep it going. But I solved that problem by deep six in the 95. So
There was a cartoon in the early 70s where it shows a guy sitting in his huge vehicle, and the filling station attendant has walked up to the window and tapped on it, and he has the fuel gate spout in his hand. He says, "You're gonna have to shut it down. You're gaining on me."
Yeah. Well, this 95 olds wasn't too bad on fuel usage, but apparently the electrical usage was pretty substantial. And of course, what anybody would have done is to remove one of the battery connectors and then been fine. But of course, that means then you got to reset the clock and reset everything and so forth.
Got to do that anyway if you got to charge the battery.
Well, that's true.
Well, I didn't know Olds used Lucas Electric.
Oh yeah, I have no idea who they used,
No.
but
Well, am I the only one that knows what I'm talking about here? Lucas Electric is a supplier for British cars, the electrical systems that are, they make the joke, Lucas Electric switches have 3 positions: on, off, and flicker.
Well, they made carburetors also, because, and the reason I know that,
Actually, that wasn't the same Lucas.
pardon? Oh, it wasn't?
No,
Okay, well, I owned a 1960 Sunbeam Rapier, and that was a little, it was a very sporty looking little sedan, small. They made 2 cars in those days, a Sunbeam Rapier and a Sunbeam Alpine. The Alpine was a sports car, and the Rapier was a 4-door four-door
sedan.
of some sort. And the last time I saw that, well, the second to last time I saw that, it was engulfed in flames on the side of a freeway in New Jersey when I was living there. I was hauling up to work one day in Somerville, New Jersey. And all of a sudden, the guy beside me on the freeway started honking his horn and so forth and so on. And I thought, what's the matter with him? He's crazy. And the next thing I know is flames showed up below the firewall. And so I aimed it as a grassy area alongside of the freeway, put on the emergency brake, popped it out of gear. And when it got below about 5 miles an hour, I did a roll out the left-hand side door. And that thing sat there and burned up. Well, the bottom line is that after they figured out, oh, the fire department showed up at some point and tried to put it out. But at that point, everything from the firewall forward was basically a cinder. And it turns out what had happened is they had a fuel filter on it. And it was on copper input and copper output lines. And the thing apparently was not supported. So it'd sit there and bounce up and down. And eventually, one of the lines sheared. And once that happened, of course, it was downstream from the fuel filter, from the fuel pump. And so it started spraying gasoline on the hot engine. Well, needless to say, that didn't go on very long before this thing caught on fire and so forth and so on. So as I said, it was the second to the last time I saw it. The last time was just out of curiosity. I went to the junkyard where they towed the thing. Sure enough, that sucker was burned to a crisp from about the front of the front seat all the way to the hood ornament. And everything back of that was perfectly intact. At that point, the thing was 6 or 7 years old. And so needless to say, that totaled the thing. It was a nice little car, but all kinds of mechanical problems. This was one of the relatively, except for the consequences, one of the relatively minor things. I mean, I had all kinds of problems with that. The other car that I owned that had mechanical problems was a 1974 Ford Pinto. To refresh your memory, that is the one which had a reputation. Ford got sued 14 ways to Sunday. A reputation for the gas tank exploding if you got rear-ended.
Yes.
And you didn't have to get rear-ended very fast. It was one of those, it was like the Ralph Nader of Fords, okay?
Ford still puts fuel cutoff switches in the trunk of their cars because of that.
Yeah, well, my answer to that was, I have never bought another Ford, okay? I've only bought Toyotas since then. But in any case, that thing was a disaster. I mean, compared to the Sunbeam Rapier was primo. The classic problem with the Pinto was apparently there is a hole in the firewall where all the electrical systems, all the wiring for the electrical systems come through the firewall to the instrument panel. Well, that works fine as long as you put a grommet around that hole in that piece of steel. But if you leave out that grommet,
Yeah,
sooner or later it wears through all those wires coming through the firewall, and the whole thing just fuses into one gob of copper. Well, needless to say, repairing that is an expensive operation. In those days, they didn't have lemon laws and all that kind of stuff. This was I think the Pinto is probably one of the cars that contributed to the generation of the lemon laws. So
it was great. I love the Pinto.
I had a
It's easy to
71
work on.
Pinto, yeah. It's a good car.
it was a cute little car. It
It-
handled like a dream, but mechanical problems. So,
one
so
that Dad had a Gremlin, Gremlin X
Oh,
that he
Really?
absolutely loved because he loved AMC stuff. But
and the X was a bit of a powerful little car.
oh yeah, it was a good car until it wasn't.
About 230 pounds on the back wheels.
It was a good car until it wasn't.
Yeah.
yeah, well,
We sold that car. We were having a garage sale, and Dad just put a for sale sign up, not expecting anybody to
I would have bought it.
look. And guy comes along and says, "What do you want?" And Dad goes, "I don't know. What do you give me?" And he goes, $50. Take it. He blew the engine out on it. What's the problem?
That's repairable.
The guy he'd
Really?
spent, him and his buddy were up there for a few hours. They got it running and they drove it out of there. I'm like, $50. There's a car for you, $50.
yep.
I've had a few cars that I got because I was able to get them driven out of where they were at. I had a 65 Ford Econoline pickup truck that I wanted to learn how to weld. And the back of this thing was filled with scrap metal and welding rods and ammo cans. And it belonged to my scoutmaster, my 4-H leader. And I asked him if I could get a handful of rods and some sheet metal. He's like, "Oh, hell, if you can get the thing out of there, you can have all of it." Okay, challenge accepted. So I went home and swiped a battery out of the Volkswagen, came back, and it took me about 2 hours, and drove that thing out of there.
I had it was a 73, I think it was a 73 T-Bird.
Mhm.
Back, I was sitting at my house, mobile home park, and backfired one day, caught fire.
Oops.
Of course, I was inside when all this was going on. I hear this mad panic, bang, 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 bang at the door. I'm like, oh, what do they want now? Open the door and my car is just flames are just shooting up. Fire department shows up. That car, by the time they got there, all 4 wheels had burnt to the ground. The car was basically sitting on the ground by the time they got there. And I want to talk about loud explosions. Set tires on fire that have air in them. They make quite a loud sound.
Yeah.
That was not fun. Turns out it backfired up into the carburetor, and the guy that I had bought it from had wrapped the carburetor, the
Air cleaner.
air cleaner.
Air cleaner. Yeah.
He wrapped that with duct tape for some reason, and the duct tape sparked and got nice and toasty.
Nice.
The only saving part of all that was I wasn't running it and I only had about a quarter of a tank of gas in it maybe.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in it, but it was sitting right on top of the porch when it caught on fire. It could have been a disaster, a complete disaster.
So this was a 4-door, 4-seater, right?
Actually, I think this one was, it was a 2-door, but it was the big, it was the big bathtub, huge thing.
Yeah.
It had the headlight gilly bobs. I mean, it was a really nice car that.
So was it a ragtop?
No, it was a hard top.
Really?
Yeah.
Was this a hard top that was removable, or was it
No,
a permanent hard top?
it may not have been. I know it was a mid-70s. It may not have been a 73.
So this was long after the 2-seater.
Oh yeah. This was it was a 4-seater. It was huge. It was a huge car.
Yeah. Why did they call that a T-bird?
It was.
Yeah.
It was probably twice the size of this safe.
Yeah.
It was huge. It was a huge car.
That was one of
I delivered pizzas in that thing for forever.
There goes your gas money.
that was one of Ford's stupider mistakes. The 67, I think, was the last year that they made the sporty 2-seater
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And those things are worth a fortune even today if you can get a hold of one.
Ford does have a habit of rebranding cars that have nothing to do with the classic version that made them
Like
classic.
Like the current Mustang?
Like the current Mustang, yes.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
the,
exactly.
yeah,
Mustang has never been an SUV. I mean, I could live with it being electric, but never been an SUV.
It would be sweet.
I had a 66 Mustang, and that was cool. That definitely, that was before they did. And then they went, at some point in the 70s, they went to the Mustang 2.
Right, yeah.
I had a 76 Mustang. It was awful.
That's what I mean. They in the 70s, they seemed to rebrand everything that hadn't, just forget Ford even existed in the 70s. It just, the 70s never
I
happened.
will give this. I had a 76 Mustang. It had factory Bondo on the body. Okay, literally. But it was a straight 6. It was easy to work on. We paid $150 for that car because I got in a wreck or something, needed a car. We bought it for $150. I drove the thing for 3 years and I sold it to somebody else for $150 with 190,000 miles on it. It was still going just as well as when I bought it. I mean, it was solid and reliable. It was ugly. It was an awful car, but it was solid and reliable.
Well, that Ford inline 6 was a pretty reliable engine.
Yeah.
Mustang was a classic muscle car, and then in the 70s, it was a weird little, not quite sports car, but not really.
Well, to be
An economy.
It was a not quite sport
An
car.
economy car.
Yeah.
Well, then there was the Ford Falcon.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like the way the Falcon looked.
Well, my nephew is an auto body mechanic in Kansas City and works for a Ford dealership. And the Ford Windstar came in, and I don't know exactly what it was. It was a front end damage, and they decided to total it. So he bought it from the insurance company for like $150. And all he had in it was time, and he accumulated the parts and repaired it. He and his wife drove it for about 5 years. Then she was rear-ended and they totaled it again. And they were done with the need for a big Ford Windstar, and he called and offered it to me, and he said, I'll give you 4 new tires and the whole vehicle for $600. And I said, well, great, what do you need to do that? And he needed a little cash to get the rear deck. He might be a great auto body mechanic, but his finances have always been shit. Anyway, we got this car and we drove it and drove it and drove it and drove it. And one day my wife called for work and said, I can't turn off the van. And I said, well, just pull the keys out. And she said, I'm standing in the pharmacy. I have the keys in my hand. The car is in the parking lot, locked up, running. So I drove down and sure enough, it's locked up, running, no keys in the ignition. So I put a key in so the wheel wouldn't lock, drove it home, left her at the car I'd driven down there. I'm trying to think, how am I going to get this thing to turn off?
Well, eventually it'll run out of gas.
Well, I didn't want to wait that long. I figured I'll pull the fuse to the fuel pump. So I'm trying to figure out which is the fuel pump fuse. And my priorities changed. They changed to how the hell I get this buzzer to shut up. And eventually I got it stopped, and I'm in there looking. It's got a tilt wheel, and I think there's a rack and pinion mechanism with the key that has jumped a tooth. So I'm looking and I'm looking. I think that if I stick a straight slot screwdriver in there with a thin shaft, I can whack it with a hammer and get it to jump again. But I'm not positive what the mechanism is. So I come up and look on the computer to see if anybody has a mechanism like that or explain it. And apparently this is fairly common because that's the first thing that came up. It says, don't stick a screwdriver in the ignition area and hit it with a hammer or you'll set off the airbags. And I'm just thinking I'd be wearing a screwdriver in the middle of my head if I had set that thing off. So we take all the armor underneath, get the switch down, and it's about the size of 2 bolt holes, and it has the 4 positions that you have normally on an ignition switch. And the van is not worth having somebody spend $300 to take the mechanism all apart and change that. So we just left that hanging down and figure anybody who hops in the van and figures out this switch hanging down below the dashboard is all you need to do to start, make the car run. There's no ignition anymore. There's something that keeps the wheel from locking. That's about it. But the point of this is after about 4 or 5 years, we sold it. And my wife and I are in the little office there with the new vehicle salesman and the guy that's filling out the paperwork. And we had traded in the Ford Windstar and got like $1,500 Ford for Ford. We'd gotten some trade-in value for it and some other benefit. We came out of it in great shape, but the salesman comes in and says, how do you start your van? And my wife, straight face, says, oh, you have to hot wire it. And the 2 Ford salesmen had this look on their face of, what did we just buy? Oh, it was priceless.
Well, I think that these days, when you turn in an older trade-in, they just wholesale them off, and
Yeah.
they go to South America or someplace or another.
I don't know. Everything that could be worn out was worn out by the time we sold it.
you said something about the Falcon being a square box.
Mhm.
See, I like the 84, 85 Ford Crown Victoria because it's a square box.
Oh, okay.
I like that look. If I could take the Crown Victoria body of the 85 Crown Victoria and
Mhm.
just switch it to the modern hardware, I would, because that's an awesome looking. And actually you can, because they're on the same chassis.
Really?
They didn't change. the chassis.
So they're not integrated bodies, they're actually on a frame?
It's on the Panzer chassis,
Huh,
and they haven't changed. I think 1 year or 2 years, it's a few inches bigger. It's not like it's really changed much over the years.
well, the Crown
They
Vic
cha-
is long since no longer made, isn't it?
Right. But they changed body styles, but they didn't change much else. And of course, the newer models have, better computers and better gas mileage and all that.
Yeah.
But
I am amazed at the gas mileage Marla's car gets. The thing weighs 1,000 pounds more than my little Chevy, and I get about 28 miles per gallon, and she gets 38.
Wow,
Yeah.
what car does she?
Mazda 6. You put that thing in sport mode, it's surprising.
Yeah.
I-
Keep mine in overdrive, and it does really well.
Mhm.
It's still, I looked at the data sheet for it from the year that it was made, and it would have failed. It never would have gotten passed on gas mileage, but it was registered for 20,
Mhm.
and sure enough, I get between 18 and 20. I mean, we're talking about a 14-year-old car that really
Yeah.
hasn't changed its gas profile much.
Yeah.
so the Mazda, didn't that have a Wankel engine in it or something?
No. The RX-7 did, and the RX-8, all of the RX series did. This is an inline 4, 2.4 liter front wheel drive. It's a fairly normal engine, but they do run it very lean.
Hmm.
I don't know. I am just constantly amazed by that car. It is the best car I've ever driven, and I've driven a lot of cars.
I think it's
Huh.
40.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
and it'll squeak its tires, no problem at all.
I been seeing a lot of chatter recently about rotary engines again, but I don't know if that's just chatter or if they're really seriously considering that.
That is the engine that's killed everything it's ever been in.
Yeah, they've got troubles with it. They did talk about it for using it in an all electric car, basically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Because of some of the characteristics, it's got emission problems.
I'm really kind of surprised that somebody doesn't make a little aftermarket generator for a Tesla, little turbine engine. You could make a turbine, I don't know, fairly small, that would keep a Tesla charged all the time. I read somewhere that those things on the interstate are pushing about 2.5 horsepower to just continue to roll.
Well, the Maverick is back, by another way. The Maverick
Really?
is back. It's a compact pickup.
Pickup. What?
The Maverick,
Yep,
a
2022 Ford Maverick compact pickup truck.
Is it actually that? I like the Ranger, so I may pick up one of those. I have always liked Fords. I don't know
the Ranger, the new Ranger is bigger than the old Ranger.
Yeah, I
I
know.
really like it. I really like the new Ranger.
I like the little tiny Ranger. The one that was 4 feet across
Mhm.
above the wheel wells and
Mhm.
only 3 feet below.
I like, I kind of like the new Broncos too, but not quite as much as, not quite as much as some of the other stuff. The Maverick is a truck. I always thought the Maverick was.
The Maverick at one point was a sedan
That's
because
what I thought.
because I owned one in 1970. I had a 71 Maverick. This was right after I owned the 66 Mustang. And I figured the Mustang was great. I loved it. And then,
So the
my wife-
Maverick's got to be good too.
yeah, right. Well, that was you could look at a declining curve. It went from Mustang to Maverick to Pinto.
You gotta overlook the Ford in the 70s. You just gotta overlook them.
Oh, you forget about the Vega.
Oh,
Please,
yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, the Falcon and so forth and so on. But you know what happened in the 70s?
The gas crisis.
No.
Okay.
What happened in the 70s in
I was
Ford?
born.
You're only off by 3 decades from me. But in any case, in the 70s, Henry Ford II decided to fire Lee Iacocca.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
might explain
that
it a bit.
that was one of the Ford family fiascos. I guess that would be an FFF, a Ford family fiasco. They fired Lee Iacocca, and I guess that you could say, and the rest is history. Of course, Iacocca went along to agreed to for $1 a year to rescue the Chrysler Corporation, and actually
Okay.
the rest is history. Iacocca, I thought, independent of any political aspects and so forth and so on, Iacocca, I think, was a genius. But Henry Ford too couldn't stand him, and he fired him, and
That might actually explain quite a bit about what was going on in
Yeah,
Ford in the 70s.
Iacocca was big in the work on the Mustang.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that.
oh yeah, he and what's his name?
Back.
The guy that made God, I'm losing it.
You're not thinking of Carroll Shelby, are you?
Carroll Shelby and Lee Iacocca were thick as thieves, and Shelby influenced Iacocca's move to the Mustang. And apparently Henry Ford too just, there's a classic example of the blood gets thinner in successive generations. You have Henry Ford, one, the original, and then you have Edsel Ford. And Edsel Ford, I think Henry Ford really wondered if he was really his father. And then you had Henry Ford too. And, that was another one of these descents, from greatness to less than greatness to,
Edsel
kid.
had some interesting cars.
Yeah, mechanically, they were good.
Yes.
Design wise, yeah. Really
Yeah,
good.
Edsel had some interesting ideas, but
Well,
may or may not have been. the
I
best
I
route
I
to-
remember the Edsel very clearly. It ran for 2 years, and my interpretation of it was they incorporated a lot of ideas that eventually got into more modern cars,
Right.
but they were before their time. And
That's my understanding of it.
and
Before his time.
Ford Motor engineers just didn't have it together to bring all that stuff to, because the Edsel just kind of fell apart. You know, it,
Well, he brought what, a bunch of safety stuff in, then seatbelts and.
well, it was not only safety stuff, but a bunch of fancy stuff. There were push button transmissions and so forth and so on. And
Dodge was the first with that.
pardon?
Dodge was the first with the push button transmission.
Well, yeah, but basically the Chrysler line had for a period of time push button. My ex-father-in-law had a big Chrysler that had a push button thing, and it was very handy when it worked. But you know, all these great ideas are great when they work, but they just couldn't get it together. And I remember the other thing that happened in the 70s, in 74 and 75, there was a federal mandate to make seat belts mandatory. And they tied it in 74 specifically, they tied it into the ignition. And if you didn't have your seatbelt on, you couldn't get the thing to start up, to run.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a couple of guys in a, I don't know if it was a Falcon or a Pinto or whatever, sitting out in the middle of an intersection, trying to get their seat belts to, and they couldn't start the car, and they eventually had to get out and push it out of the intersection. Because the electronics in those days in the car, there was just so unreliable that they couldn't,
And
you know, couldn't support it.
Not just then, do you remember the seat belts on the track that went
yeah,
down?
those were awesome.
Yeah, I had a, what was it?
I had an Escort that did that.
I had a Festiva that had those, and they, once they got a little bit of dirt and grit in there, they just trashed themselves.
Well,
I think
Toyota came along with I think it was the Corona from the early 80s, and it had those and they worked fine. But Ford just couldn't get it together.
I remember driving my Escort probably 300 miles with the seatbelt halfway off.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're sitting there going, okay. And then we had, I think it was the Escort that had the button where you could just detach it so that it would be out of the way.
Yep.
It's just gone.
But then it was in the way when you got out of the car.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, because it wouldn't move.
My Festiva, I took that track apart with a screwdriver just to get it out of the way.
Yeah, I think our Festiva.
And that was a
made it.
94, I think, last year of production. But to be fair, the Festiva was really a Kia. So,
Yeah. So does anybody remember Studebakers?
Yep.
Well,
Did you ever?
Studebaker? I can't say I remember the Studebaker. I have seen them.
We had one when I was a kid.
Yeah, they were interesting cars. They had this strange body style that the front nose looked like a bullet.
looked like a plane, didn't it?
Well, they
Sorta.
they they had a sort of a round kind of a, it was kind of missile shaped, I guess, more than a
Like a
bullet.
center headlight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
kind of like a plane.
yep, they basically some of those 50s and 60s cars were very interesting design and to drive and so forth and so on.
Some of those cars were, at least in concept, were very far ahead of their time. Like
Yeah,
the concept car that had the radar in the front end.
yep,
I remember that.
It had two radar tracks in the front, and it was supposed to, by design, it was supposed to tell you if you were going too fast or if you were going to hit something. I don't think it could stop you, but it was going to tell you that you were
You're
going to
about
hit
to die.
yeah.
it. You're going to hit that. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, car. I know that.
Well, you talked about a Studebaker. One of my earliest memories as a child was looking out the storm door of the home I grew up in and seeing the man across the street working on his Studebaker in his front yard. And he had it up on a bumper jack
Ooh,
and the car fell on him.
Oh,
And
Christ.
as a small child, I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew something was. I got my mom. She went over and got the man's wife, and the two of them got the bumper jack back underneath the car and got him out from under the car with just a couple few broken ribs.
That was an extremely common problem with those bumper jacks.
Yeah. If it hadn't been for some dumb little kid looking out the front door, I think he probably would have suffocated under the car.
Yeah.
my first car memory was my mom bought a brand new Volkswagen Beetle in 1968. And it had seat belts. And she told me to wear my seat belts, and I could put the seat belt in, but it had a little lever that you had to rotate to disconnect them, and I couldn't disconnect it. And I remember her getting out of the car and going in the house, and me in the back of the car strapped in, can't get out, screaming for her, get me out of here.
Can't get out. I just remember my VW Bug, two of them. The straw had dried out, and
Oh, yeah.
the springs had, or the spring had fallen and caught fire
Mhm.
because it fell onto the battery.
Great battery placement.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not bad when everything's nice and new and everything, but after you've had them for,
Yeah.
and you've had weight back there and all kinds of other stuff.
Well, the first Beetle that I ever drove didn't have a gas gauge. It had a reserve tank. And so when you ran out of gas, I think it was something you rotated it and then started looking for a gas gauge, for a gas station, because it had, I don't know, a gallon and a half, something like that in this reserve tank. And so you wait until you ran out of gas, then you rotate this thing and look for a gas station and filled it up. And I don't
Take the
know.
valve back.
Yeah, that was the trick. If you let that thing open, of course, the next time you ran out of gas,
You were out of gas.
you were dry. And I don't remember exactly when that was, but I think that was sometime in the early 60s,
Yeah.
maybe mid 60s, that they finally got around to putting a gas gauge in it.
Well, do
68
you
had
remember
a
the
gas gauge.
Volkswagens that had a fluid reservoir for the windshield washer?
That was a
It
great.
had a little
design.
tip on it that you screwed onto the spare tire. The spare tire provided the compressed air that drove the fluid out onto the squirter.
which was awesome until you needed the flat tire.
Well,
But
it
let you
didn't
know that
take a
the pressure
tremendous amount of
tire-
air because the reservoir wasn't that large. So it wasn't like it ran all the time. It only ran when you were wanting to squirt the fluid.
Yeah, and it just pressurized the tank.
Yeah,
I don't remember that one. Was that the van or was that the Bug?
that was
The
a
Bug
bug.
had it.
The Bug had it, yeah.
That was still when the front window was flat. So
Oh, okay.
The
Because
68 had that.
the early Bugs had like all kinds of tools in the trunk, in the front trunk.
Yeah.
That very, very useful stuff that
Ours came with a little plastic kit of spare light bulbs. Every single light bulb that was in the V-Dub was in there.
yeah,
that they had a spot for it, and they had like a little toolbox kind of thing for it.
Yeah.
That was a
That's right.
And you
very,
needed it.
yeah, that was the kind of car, those cars were super simple and anybody could work on them.
Yeah, I'd love to have one now.
Almost, yeah. I mean,
You might not be able to get the carburetor adjusted right, but you could get home.
oh, you didn't even really need a starter for the stupid thing. It was so easy. You just hop in it and push it down the hill and pop the clutch and start right up.
It was
Oh,
so
yeah.
fun in snow.
We
well, I still don't own a vehicle that you can't do that with. I haven't owned an automatic transmission except for one vehicle in my entire life.
well, I didn't know you could even buy vehicles with standard transmissions.
6-speed dual overdrive Ford Fusion is what we're driving now. We took it into the dealership to have them do a recall on the airbags. And the two mechanics got in the car and they said, "Oh, what's that? It's got an automatic or not an automatic transmission.
not an
It's
automatic. How
manual.
do I drive this thing?"
Look at this." And they call people over to look at it. It's like, wow, I've never seen one of those. So
That's interesting.
I remember when that was pretty much what you were going to find. Automatics were the oddballs.
An automatic
Yeah.
costs more. Now manual costs more. You pay extra.
you
for
can't
manual.
even get them in most vehicles. They're not available.
My very first car I ever owned was a 74 Malibu Classic. That was a great car. Then I owned a 74 Pontiac Le Mans. Got both of them from my grandmother, and both of them were the same shade of horrible green. 70s green. That 70s green. And,
She liked green, huh?
two different grandmothers, but
Oh,
but they had very similar tastes because both cars came off of the same line. They
Yeah.
just were a different body style. They were damn near the same car.
1980 Fiat green was probably the worst green ever in a car.
The
It was kind of a pea soup green.
it's kind of what I would describe the Le Mans green was.
Yeah.
It was kind of a pea soup. It was that nasty 70s green. It was just okay, everything's green because
well, that was the English racing colors.
No, there's a huge difference between Fiat green and Triumph green.
well, I had a theory that the reason why everything was green in the 70s was because there was a gas crunch, and we were trying to convince everybody that the cars were.
Well,
better than
okay, explain the green kitchen appliances.
I can't
Oh.
explain the nasty green.
Avocado.
Yeah, that's true. Avocado. That
You
was,
know, one of the houses that me and Patty looked at still had a green kitchen.
Ooh, I'm
A
sorry.
submarine green kitchen. And we were like, yeah, that would have to be changed.
That's gonna be expensive.
Before there was avocado, there was brown, then avocado, harvest gold.
I remember gold.
oh yeah.
Robin's egg blue.
I never saw an appliance that color.
My washer and dryer were.
Ah,
I got
remember-
my mother's washer and dryer when, after she had had them for 30 years, I guess. She decided she needed a new washer and dryer. She gave me her old ones. I used those things for another 15 years. I sold them to somebody else. They still work. They were old Maytag. It was a Maytag model 104 washer. It had one belt. It had no electromagnets or anything. It had a kitchen timer for a switch. I had to replace that switch twice. Once when Mom owned it, once when I owned it. When I sold the thing, that switch was still like $18. There was nothing else on it to break.
Yeah,
I have just one comment before I need to go. The little kid comes up to his father and says, "How come wedding dresses are always white?" And his dad puts down the newspaper and says, "All household appliances are white."
okay.
I'll have to repeat that one.
That one will get somebody into trouble.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say.
Watch for the backhand.
See you later.
Stay far away.
Bye.
Take care.
Drop a joke like that. I'm out.
Yep. Yeah, that would get all of us in trouble.
At least once or more.
Yeah, I'll have to find out what that does tonight.
Yeah, a little caution there, Steve.
You got your couch ready?
She has a very good sense of humor.
So how you liking the new house?
Like it very much. It's on a nice little quiet cul-de-sac, and there's kids outside rolling balls down the street and stuff. Kind of nice. Backyard is pretty decent sized, quiet. And now Marla is looking for a basset hound puppy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how's your commute?
It's 6.2 miles to work. Takes me about 12 minutes on back roads and 13 minutes if I go on the highway, but that's almost 8 miles. It's not bad at all. I enjoy it. It's are you familiar with Teal Town Road?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You come down Teal Town into Round Bottom up to 50 and into work.
Yep. That's I may have mentioned your work is right on the other side of 275 for me, and basically I can look off my back deck and see the top of the Siemens building.
Yep.
It's got a little white hut on the top of it. I don't know what that is, but
The air conditioning.
oh, so that's the service module up there.
Yeah.
I think that's a 4-story building, if I'm not badly mistaken.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's lower level, first, second, third.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it straight. This time of year, I can see it straight off my deck. when the trees are fully,
Leafy.
leafed out, probably won't be able to see it, but
You'll still be able to see that cell tower right next to it.
yes.
Yeah, I am seriously enjoying this job. There's a lot
Great.
to learn, and every day I get to play with cool toys. I put in a NAS today, or SAN, I don't know which one it is. A big box full of hard drives, and it had 8 40 gig network connections going to it. 320 gigabytes per second transfer speeds. It was just crazy.
So this is just for.
This is one of a stack of about 20 of these things, and it serves up VM images to stacks and stacks of other big Dells, big HPs. We got a few VMs there.
Just a few.
Just a few, yeah. Round numbers, about 5,000 Linux VMs and about 3,000 Windows VMs.
That's just a few.
So you just provide services to the local area, or yeah, right.
No, so this building used to be SDRC, the Structural Dynamics Research Corporation,
Yep.
and they developed software to model how materials fail. And so we sell that software, and that is compiled on site, and we are a backup site for 2 other Siemens locations.
Well,
I'm figure out why our address says that we're on Industrial Way or whatever it is, because that road in front of it is Techno Center Drive.
mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that one you're pointing to there goes straight down to the end of 50, or to tease into 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you come back a little bit to the south, to the left and south a little bit, that's where I'm located. Right, yeah, you're almost there.
Right in there.
No, it's actually off to the left a little bit. It's up on Terrace Ridge there.
Yeah, when I first moved out to the Eastgate area years ago, there were no houses there where the cursor is.
Yeah, that's Polo Fields down there. Yeah, all of that's Polo Fields. Oh, if you look just to the west of Beechwood Road and go north just a little bit, north, you see off to the left, whoop, no, you just push it off the screen. Now you see that circle there?
Yeah.
Off there. Okay. And we're up on Eastview there.
Ah,
That, by the way, that's a very dated Google
image. This is 2022. But,
That's 2022.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
but
copyright.
it's not current, I can tell you. If you go to your left a little bit, just move the image to the left. There. See,
It's not really
whoa,
done.
whoa, 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 stop there, stop there. Okay, that's not current. Because
There are houses are here.
there are houses there. There's houses up on, if you come up Eastview there,
East.
Eastview, that's the center. Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop. Okay, that's,
He's not gonna see me if I point.
okay, wait a minute. If you go up, you see where the circle is.
Yes.
See where the circle is.
Go up.
Yeah, that one, that one. No, 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 don't go north, go south.
The upper up.
Go
Okay.
south.
Go south. There you go.
Yeah, stop right there. Okay, now,
Fire.
There's a cul-de-sac on the left.
the cul-de-sac on the left is Eastview Drive. That one right there. And we are the whole fourth house down from that cul-de-sac on the right-hand side. So we are, no, one more house, one more house right there. You're pointing right at it, right there.
So the
Yeah, right there. There's a kids play gizmo in the backyard and so forth and so on. All right.
Yeah.
That picture may say 2022, but in fact is the way it looked in about 2010.
Wow.
Really?
Oh yeah, all of those houses have been built out,
Mhm.
going
I'm surprised
north
it's been updated.
all the way down.
I Googled one of my old houses. Yep, we haven't lived there for probably 10 years, maybe longer. And my car's sitting in the driveway.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, he's right. They don't update as fast. If stuff doesn't change that often, they don't update that fast.
We
Yeah.
need a Google Earth for that.
At one point.
Well, actually, if you want to see what it looks like now,
I could see. behind
Google Earth.
And then it got towed later on.
Wow.
I saw it before, during, and after the car.
Yeah, I was looking at one of my old houses and there's my car just sitting right there. I'm like, oh, cool. I got screenshots of it because I was like, the satellite passed over and took a picture of my car.
yep,
Google Earth, you can see history,
Yeah.
history somewhere. You.
yeah.
Uh,
Again,
uh,
that house going north along Eastview there, all of that's built up. All of that's built up. And as of now, there is a parallel street to the west that is now in the process of being built up. And all that stuff to the north, all that's built, all that's completed.
we can see the history.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, weird.
There you go. There you go. All of that's built.
That's interesting.
And
That is interesting.
and the next street over to the west,
Now it says the image date was 9/23/2021. So
there you go. Right there.
This is
That
Wow.
area there is in the process of being built up right now.
okay.
this is
This is,
Google Earth, though,
Google Earth, yeah,
not Google Maps.
yeah.
This is Google Earth.
If they have different pictures.
Yep.
I think one of them is using, the cars that drive around and take the pictures.
Mhm.
One of them uses that and one of them uses satellite views.
Yeah.
The overhead views are not from cars. You're not gonna be able to see the
I hope
top
not.
of your roof.
There's a tall car.
It's a 3D representation of what it would look like, though.
Let's see what.
And if you go straight north of my house, you hit the big Walmart store that's at the bottom of the hill. So if you go straight north,
There's a big
right there,
wall.
right there's Walmart.
Look at all the solar panels up there.
Those I don't think are solar panels. Are they? Yeah, I guess they are.
In on those.
Are you sure? Because Walmart usually says that they use a lot of solar.
Maybe.
Could be. I don't know. I haven't been on the Walmart roof.
Walmart makes claims at least that they're use a lot of solar.
Then they turn off all the lights.
Here's Target.
Just use those skylights.
There's Target.
Yeah.
And if you come south a little bit, you will see,
Past the Walmart at night and the lights coming up through those skylights.
Yeah.
there's Steak and Lube.
Oh,
that's-
yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah. There's Steak and Lube. That place in the summertime, every Wednesday they have
Yeah.
I guess it's a motorcycle club gathering, but there are zillions of motorcyclists show up there.
All out there making noise.
Every Wednesday in the summertime, not in the wintertime, not this time of year even. But they have a tremendous, they actually have pretty good wings. So, and for us, it's 5 minutes to go down the hill and pick something up down there.
Roundabouts. I see roundabouts.
Yep.
I know roundabouts are better. I still hate them.
Oh, that roundabout is a disaster. And the thing that's really funny is you get an 18-wheeler comes across the railroad tracks there and goes down the hill, and there is no way that they can get around that roundabout. Basically, they just,
That's because they're not designed correctly. They need to be bigger. There's a couple of roundabouts in Butler County that are actually decent sized roundabouts that semi trucks can get through. But
yeah, well,
Pretty residential area. They shouldn't be in there.
well, no, that's not this roundabout. It's the one at the bottom of the hill there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was tiny.
It's this one, there's 18-wheelers aren't up there.
Yeah.
That picture doesn't give you the full perspective. We're sitting,
You can change the time here,
Oh, that's cool.
going back in time.
You could go
Yep.
clear back to 1985.
yeah, well, there wasn't anything there in 1985.
This is
That was just woods.
2006.
Wow, in 2006 there wasn't even a roundabout.
Oh, no,
No,
they didn't start that development until like 2008 or so.
I think these are all
Yes.
satellite pictures.
2000,
Yeah, well,
2000,
Good luck.
2003,
with map
2005.
overlay.
yep. Yeah, the beginning was,
2010.
yep. 2010, my house was up. I didn't own it, but it was up.
Yeah.
It was
2000,
there.
2013.
So who's
17.
who's driving here?
Vicente.
Vicente.
Oh, okay. That was about 2012 or so, I would guess, or maybe 2015.
It says 17.
17, okay.
17.
Yeah,
12.
yeah. 12, they hadn't done anything there in that center area.
Yeah.
This is 10.
It's actually kind of scary that they've been having satellites take our picture since 1985.
16.
Is there actually
18.
pictures of that clear back at 1985?
Yeah. All the blue area.
Yeah, but
Sorry, no.
there was
the
nothing
pictures
here
were-
in
the pictures
85.
were taken.
Yeah.
So look how
This is
far apart they were then.
1985. This is
It's
Yeah,
got
but there's nothing there.
1994. Nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
that's
black and white.
we've been being monitored since 19. I'm getting my conspiracy on.
Oh,
One of my background.
Siemens was there.
The guy was a monitor.
yep. There you go.
I saw a post on Twitter the other day where a guy was asking how he mounts, or no, he said, I followed the instructions to mount my Raspberry Pi 2040 on my Apple. Why isn't it working? And he had an Apple with a Raspberry Pi 2040 sitting on top of it. I'm like, I don't know why it's not working. And then somebody in the comment section said, oh, to mount that, you actually have to embed it.
Oh,
And he chunked it into the app. Still not working. I guess you can do that when the Raspberry Pi 2040 is $4.
Yeah.
And somebody else said something about, well, maybe the Apple just doesn't work because it thinks it's going to be turned into pie. Apple
Or
pie.
sauce.
The guy finally said, I got so frustrated with it, I just ate the apple. There's some humor for you.
So Vicente. Oh, you got to feed the dog.
Yeah, anytime.
Oh, did you feed him yet?
No. No, he eat at 4:30 in the afternoon, but this is a snack for him.
You got to get another. You're going to have to get another bottle there. That one looks like it's pretty empty.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell him.
So what was the link that you went to there? That's Google Earth?
Google Earth is an application. You need to download Google Earth.
Ah,
Yeah. So you have access to all the history of the images everywhere in the planet.
oh, wow. So what's the maximum resolution of Google Earth?
I don't know. It is changing every year. You know, the first pictures are very blurry, and the last one you have a combination of pictures with some 3D creation. You know, some graphic images over the terrain. They are mixing. There are places where there are buildings and design in 3D and put in the map, so you can
Yep.
just see the building around.
64-bit Debian.
So are those really satellite views or are they taken with drones and so forth?
No, I think they are satellite,
Now, some of them are drones.
but
Well, if you go to the Clermont County Auditor, they have tax maps. And those are very high resolution. And I can't imagine they're doing that from satellites. They got to be drones.
but the images we were seeing looks that they are some kind of artificial intelligence that convert in high resolution straight lines and these kind of things, you know, because
Mhm.
they looks like a drawing in a computer draw. So they are processing the image in some way to see more smooth lines. Because the satellite, you have like a I don't know, like a square meter or half a square meter per pixel. So it's very low resolution.
Well, and they're also affected by the whole atmosphere it's looking through.
Yeah.
So you got to get below some of that atmosphere in order to get the atmospherics out of it.
Maybe they choose the best moment to take the pictures because many parts of the planet are under clouds. So in a year they may take several full pictures of the planet.
So then it's a
Download it.
composite of those.
I think yeah,
Okay.
you don't see the street. They are usually like strips. They are connected,
Yeah.
and you don't see the union of the pictures. So they do some kind of some processing, I guess.
You're talking about like where the two pictures overlay over top of each other.
Yeah,
Process out part of it to make it look right.
Yeah.
Kind of like when they stitch together a panoramic on your phone.
this is an image, but did you go in the resolution?
It'll down in the corner of the screen, it should tell you where that picture came from. Or maybe in the center of the screen.
So what are we looking at here?
Anywhere in Ohio.
So I think those cars that have the cameras on, they do some
Chili
kind of
cook.
processing like that too. They build
Yeah,
they build like a 3D image out of it, or
they,
at least a flat 3D image.
Beautiful.
I think that's what you're doing.
Well, that's downtown Milford.
Right there in the center of the screen, it says image Landsat whatever. I can't.
Copernicus.
That's where that image came
They
from.
are.
They're
This
probably-
is some kind of 3D thing, you see?
They're taking sources of images from all over the place,
Mhm.
Hmm.
meshing them together. Oh, our funky 3D trees.
Yeah. Yeah, those are just creepy.
Well, we have now a brewery here in this corner.
Hmm.
So this is all also. There is a brewery here.
if you were in a MMO or something, that would stand. Gamers would be so upset by that image. The trees are wrong. The trees are wrong.
Let's see downtown, Cincinnati downtown. North. Up. Here. To see the buildings.
God, that water is really brown.
Doing our part for the muddy Mississippi.
Yeah. Well, that's coming from all the way over in Pennsylvania, West Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah, normally it's a little more green than that.
Is that a false color or is that actually the color of the river when this was shot?
I don't know. This image is
Yeah, that's a real color.
processed.
Oh, and there's the purple bridge.
It's usually a little clearer than that too. It's still pretty nasty.
Those are not pictures, some kind of 3D design stuff. Very detailed.
I watched a video of a guy who took a 2D video game and using the bitmaps that were available to him, he turned it into a 3D video game. It wasn't great. It was something close to that, kind of like that. But
I know there are a few buildings downtown that have been mapped interior wise as well.
yeah,
Mhm.
Let's go home.
there are Google Maps used to do a couple of those buildings. You used to be able to look and see where you were at. I think one of the hospitals was like that, wasn't it?
Probably.
We did the Cincinnati dinner train last weekend. That's a good trip, guys. Nice.
Mhm.
food. Yeah.
Where'd it go?
Where's it go to?
It's out over by the paddocks and it goes down and around the river. Comes down the river. There are a lot of houses back on the other side of the hills that you see, and a lot of new houses on those hills.
Now, is this on the Ohio side or the Kentucky side?
Ohio side. It stops at the Montgomery Inn, the boat, Montgomery Inn boat dock, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good trip. They're good prime rib.
Patty wants to ride the one in Lebanon.
Yeah, I've been on that one.
How long is it? How long is it, Jim?
It's a 3-hour trip. Nice
Really?
dinner. They do the singers, the Andrews Sisters knockoffs.
That's sweet.
It's pretty good. I got a bunch of pictures.
How much was it?
I don't know exactly how much it was. It was $10 for a drink. I tell you that.
Yeah,
Okay,
$5 a person.
that's
Plus, if you get a decent dinner out of the deal, then
Yeah.
that's probably not poor.
Yeah, one of the tip $40. I give you a clue.
Yeah.
okay.
And we met somebody that's from South Africa, a school teacher, and she's going to Brazil, and it was pretty weird.
Okay.
3 hours worth of entertainment. It may not be.
The LMN trip was okay. We did that. That's okay, but nothing compared to this. These are all new cars. I mean, new looking cars. and they have a kitchen car, full kitchen car on it.
Patty likes trains. I'm not as thrilled about trains.
$95 each.
Okay.
Well, that's not bad.
Hey, you need to get on that. It's on Saturdays.
And children 12 or younger are not permitted.
Well,
Well,
that's
that's
good.
A 3-hour train ride and a 4-course dinner.
You get your old yellow hat out, your old clothes, and it's 1949 flashback.
Hmm.
Patty likes trains. I'm not so thrilled. Really? Yeah.
It's a good trip. You get to go the back ways and see what's going on, all the businesses. The original train station, they had the biggest train station on the Pennsylvania Railway down there. You get to see the statue that's left from that. It's not bad.
See, Patty would like that.
And a lot of new houses, fantastic houses going on the side of the hills. Boom, boom, boom.
I would spend $91 just to stick her on there and wait for her to come back in 3 hours. I would be off for 3 hours down in Cincinnati.
After tax, it's 102.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah, call it $100.
She would have fun. I probably would have fun doing it. This train's
We
just
went on
don't.
Phoebe Riverboat.
Yeah, we took the riverboat ride, dinner ride.
A riverboat would excite me, but she can't stand the water, so.
Really?
Yeah, I would love
You
to go
can't
on.
tell. The thing is so big.
I know, but you can't tell her that.
Just have her sit with her back to the window.
She doesn't
Yeah.
like the water. I was in the Navy, so we will never, ever go on a boat ever again,
Yeah,
ever.
actually, I think that'd be okay with you, but
When we first got together, I could not go across the Big Mac Bridge because
Really?
she
oh,
would
okay.
panic. Oh my goodness, we were over top of water.
Huh. That's
Okay.
interesting.
This is Boca
A
Chica.
little weird about going over bridges. She would close her eyes, grip everything.
Once she got past it, but when we first got together, it was like pulling teeth to get her to go across. And then on the way back was worse because you're on the lower deck.
Oh, yeah.
And now the upper deck is going to fall on us. And I'm going to end up in the water.
We'll get crushed and then drown.
Oh, which when the
Which
deck was
bridge?
starting to collapse,
Which bridge is this?
the Big Mac, the double decker down in Cincinnati.
Hmm.
The, yeah, it has a name.
The Big Mac.
Now, Big Mac is the yellow one that's on 471.
Really, I always thought the.
Yeah, I've been across that many times,
Okay.
That's why.
but I don't.
Oh, because of the, okay. Well,
I
that
didn't.
makes sense.
I didn't know that any of them were double deckers.
The
The
one
one
on
for 71,
75
75.
is a double decker.
Okay.
When you go into Kentucky, you're on the top deck, and when you come from Kentucky, you're on the lower deck. But I always called that the Big Mac, which apparently I've been incorrect for 40 years of my life.
We always go in 471 because when we go down like to Findlay Market, we go 275 to 471 and then up to Liberty Street and west on, I think it's Liberty,
It's time
West
to
on-
go, Jim.
west on Liberty.
Okay, guys, it's time to go.
Okay,
Good night.
okay.
Talk to y'all next week.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Bye.